What's going on, you gamers? Today we're jumping into a bit more Diablo 4 and I'm going to be going over some amazing aspects you can pick up nice and easy for your Barbarian class from your Codex of Power. So if you want to know what the best ones are, then stay tuned. That's coming up next. Welcome back everybody. Today we're jumping into a bit more Diablo 4 and I'm going to be looking at what we've seen so far from the demo and all the aspects that you can get for the Barbarian class in his Codex of Power. Obviously this isn't everything in the game, you will still be able to get some on your uniques and on your legendaries that will be completely different to these, but knowing what you can pick up from dungeons and through progressing the story can really help you out. And these ones I believe are probably some of the best you can get. Now remember, things could change in the future as the game is still 2 months away, but I believe these will probably be very similar to when it's released. Also remember, not all aspects are the same, they're going to be tied to 5 categories. That's going to be your defensive, your offensive, your resources, your utility and your movement. So the first category we're going to be looking at for the Barbarian is going to be his defensive aspects. These, as you can see up the top here, the allowed types you can put these on. It shows a shield, so I believe that's probably your offhand, then your helmet, then your chest, your legs and your amulets. So all of these can be applied to any of those. So the first one is going to be the aspect of tempering blows. After swapping weapons 6 times you gain 46 fortify. Fortify on Barbarian I think is going to be probably more so needed than any other class, and it can also help you out with some damage from your skill tree and things. So being able to generate additional of this can really help you out, especially if you're weapon swapping very often. Next up, and we have the aspect of disobedience. You gain 0.25 increased armor for 4 seconds when you deal any form of damage, stacking up to 25%. If the beta told me anything, it's that Barbarian definitely needs some kind of mitigation, so if you're struggling with your enemies, especially those close range ones, this may be something you want to look at in order to stack up your armor and get a bit more damage mitigation. Another great one for mitigation is going to be aspect of might. Basic skills grant 25% damage reduction for 4 seconds. You are almost definitely going to have this up almost constant as you're going to be spamming your basic skills in between your core skills and other effects, and 25% damage reduction is actually massive, especially if you can use it in conjunction with some of your other shouts and such. Over to the aspect of Bulkathos, and Leap creates an earthquake that deals 164 physical damage. While standing in earthquake you gain 5% increased damage reduction. If you're thinking about doing a Leap build, this is one you'll almost definitely want, as you're going to have a bit more of your defences and a nice little bit of AoE going on. Next up, and one of my personal favourites, is going to be aspect of the Iron Warrior. Iron Skin grants unstoppable and 10% damage reduction. This one is absolutely amazing. The only thing I wish with this, I wish it was on a shout rather than just a skill that's classed as a defensive skill, as that would have made pretty much all of my Barbarian problems dissolve straight away. But if you're thinking about putting Iron Skin on your bar, this will undoubtedly be one you want to pick up, because Unstoppable is very much needed on the Barbarian. Now jumping over to the offensive aspects, and these ones can be bestowed upon your amulets, your weapons, your gloves and your rings. And the first one we're going to kick off with is going to be the aspect of retribution. Distant enemies have a 15% chance to be stunned for 2 seconds when they hit you. Not bad, definitely not the best thing I've ever seen, but the next one is amazing, and that's going to be you deal 30% increased damage to stunned enemies. You actually have quite a few ways of getting stun about yourself with the Barbarian, one of which, if I remember correctly, is going to be your upheaval. So this can work into a lot of builds, and 30% extra damage is massive, especially if you're putting on a 2-hander and doubling up on the effect. Over to Earthstriker's aspect, and this one I really enjoy. I'm going to be trying to fit this into a build somehow, and that's going to be after weapon swapping 10 times, your next attack will overpower and will deal 30% increased overpowered damage. Knowing that you have a guaranteed way to overpower one of your hits is a really good thing with Barbarian, and even though it is 10 times so you will need to tweak your build a bit, this one could definitely come into play quite a lot for those really big hits. Jumping over to aspect of the expectant, attacking enemies with a basic skill increases the damage of your next core skill by 5% up to 50%. Like I said, you will definitely be using your basics in this a lot, and being able to get an extra 50% damage will work hand in hand with a lot going on with the Barbarian builds, so this may very well be one you want to chuck onto one of your pieces of equipment. The aspect of Ancestral Echoes, Lucky Hit, now damaging enemies with Leap, Upheaval or Whirlwind, has up to a 40% chance to summon an ancient to perform the very same skill. This can only happen once every 5 seconds, but believe me, when it does, this one really does pull off some damage because you're pretty much doubling up, and it's a lot of fun to see. So this may well be worth looking at if you're thinking about centering around one of those skills, which I think most barbarians probably will be. Aspect of the Berserk Ripping: whenever you deal direct damage with Berserking, inflict 22% of the base damage dealt as additional bleeding damage over 5 seconds. Jumping straight into your bleed builds, you're probably going to want to chuck this on somewhere, as it's really going to help your damage out overall, and you're going to want to be able to stick as many bleed aspects on as possible. So Aspect of the Berserk Ripping may well be one you want to think about. From a bleed build over to a whirlwind build, if you're thinking about being a whirlwind barb, Aspect of the Dire Whirlwind will almost definitely be one on your mind, because Whirlwind's critical strike chance is now increased by 5% for each second it is channeled, up to a maximum of 20%. If you want to see some big numbers, if you're trying to make your Whirlwind last an absolute age, then this is definitely one you're going to want to look at. Over to Veteran's Brawler Aspect, and this one can do some significant damage. Each time a core skill deals direct damage to an enemy, your next charge or leap deals 15% increased damage up to 225%. If you can manage to get this near the top end, honestly I've seen it hit massive numbers. So again, if you're thinking about a build that revolves around charge or leap or has them in it some way, this may well be one to look at. Edgemaster's Aspect, very nice and easy one to apply. Skills deal up to 24% increased damage based on your available primary resource when it's cast, receiving the maximum benefit when you have full primary resource. Again, I really like this one because you can work out when you're going to get the maximum benefit from it, and if you're using it hand in hand with say Overpower and some of the other skills going on, you can work out when you can do some massive damage and kind of time your attacks. So Edgemaster's Aspect is absolutely amazing for that. Going over to your resource aspects, and these can only bop straight on, as you see up there, onto your rings. There was only 2 that I thought were very significant, and the first one is going to be Aspect of the Unrelenting Fury. Killing the enemy with a core skill refunds 10% of its base fury cost. This might not sound like much, but honestly anytime you can get some kind of a buffer on how much things cost, this can really work out well, and if you're using it in conjunction with some other fury generators, this could be a really nice one to have on. Speaking of which, over to a nice generator, we've got Aspect of Echoing Fury. Your shout skills generate 2 fury per second whilst active. I think almost every single build is going to have at least 1, maybe even 2 of those shouts, because they're absolutely exceptional on barbarians, and they're one of the best ways of generating damage and of course mitigation. So being able to generate fury whilst you've got them active is going to be something you'll probably want to have. Over to our utility aspects, and these can be put on the shield type, but again I believe it's offhand, helmet, chest, amulet, gloves and boots. So pretty much everything except for your weapon types. Aspect of Anemia for lucky hit, direct damage against bleeding enemies has up to a 31% chance to stun them for 2 seconds. I actually tried a build around this and it was ridiculously strong. I don't know if I was just lucky at the time, but I was managing to make almost everything stunned with a build I had on. If you're trying to keep things in place and do an absolute abundance of bleed damage, this may be one to look at. And Aspect of Perpetual Stomping, damaging an enemy with kick or ground stomp resets leap's cooldown. As we've seen, there's quite a lot going on with leap already, so if you're thinking about using that, this may be one you want to use in conjunction with it in order to reset it over and over again. Lastly, for the mobility type aspects, these can only be placed on your amulets and your boots, and I honestly didn't think there was too many that were amazing for the barbarian, but the best one that I picked out was going to be your Ghost Walker aspect. Especially late game, if it's anything like the previous Diablos and you've got mobs that are clustered around you, you're trying to clear through things as fast as possible, and you just want to smash through absolute abundance of baddies, then this may be the one for you. Whilst unstoppable, and for 2 seconds after, you can gain 10% increased movement speed and can move freely through your enemies. I can see this one being an absolute lifesaver. It's going to make things so much easier for just charging through the content and the dungeons, so this may well be one you want to look at in order to put on your boots. But yeah, let me know in the comments, is there any you think I've missed off? Obviously you will be able to find some additional kinds on your weapons and such that you can take off, but from your Codex of Power, these are definitely the best ones I found. Hopefully that's helped a few of you guys and girls out. As always, for all things gaming, take care. I'll see you next day.